Howdy, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well today. We're, I'll say we're trying to break out a little bit. I don't know how well that will go. We opened up this, now remember, we're right here at the end of the month. I think everybody realizes that. Tomorrow is our last trading day this month. We opened up the month on the S&P at 56.44, and we are at 55.92 right now. So, um, it can actually try to get back to that month open. It'd be really interesting if they do, because they have spent this whole month in the toilet pretty much, right? But we have gone all over the place. I mean, you wake up in the middle of the morning, we're way up, and then all of a sudden they sell it off. We're way down, they flip back around and they rally it. And it's just this market can't figure out which way it wants to go. And even if you look at just kind of where we hit the opening bell in the mornings, we've been seeing some divergence in the various markets. You'll see the Dow making lows and the Nasdaq making highs, and then you'll have it the other way around. The Nasdaq's making lows and the Dow's making highs. It's just kind of a crazy market right now. I think it's best to kind of keep your powder dry more than anything, and just kind of sit back and kind of see, let the market figure it out on its own before we try to do anything. That being said, though, one thing that's kind of interesting, what they're actually trying to do here. Let me just show this real quickly. Did I grab the right one here? Yeah, I did. Oh, right there. Do. So basically, um, they've had a lot of resistance. This is those highs that we were having earlier this year in February, and then of course everything's been selling off. We really dumped off because of the tariff thing and everything like that. And now they've been trying to bounce back up. So that retracement wise from those lows, basically what we're looking at, driving me nuts out of the corner of my eye there. Um, they were having a lot of resistance at this 50% retracement area, and now they're actually getting above it, which argues that we could get back up to that month open 56.44 and maybe even up to the no, basically 5700 area, before they start having a lot of resistance again. So if that's the case, that's cool, that's fine. I have no problem with that. Or do they come up here and they fail once again, right? So that's the one thing that kind of drives me nuts. Um, so and there's some, I mean, I think the volume wise, things have kind of thinned out a little bit. And I think you got a lot of algos in there kind of, flipping everything around on the news. And I think people kind of stepped away. So you do kind of see some jumps in the market here and there. So you just have to kind of be aware of that more than anything. Um, my last time we were together, I guess that would be last week. I was talking to you about the cattle herd size and stuff like that. Just kind of getting off onto a different note here. Don't know if you all read or anything, but there's actually a flesh-eating fly. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? That's actually down in Mexico attacking their beef. And we're actually thinking about not getting any beef from Mexico until they fix the problem. So even though we have small herds here, we're not going to be importing any beef from down there, which we import quite a bit of beef from down there. And all of a sudden, we're going to have a lot higher prices probably at the supermarket, and maybe get a little scarcity, kind of like we did with chicken for a while, right? Um, and that's the biggest thing that you kind of have to watch for right now is just, keep your ear to the ground a little bit and the only reason, I mean, I do trade, cattle and pigs and stuff like that. I trade those futures and everything like that. But for the normal person that's out there that doesn't do that, I think it's always good to kind of keep your ear to the ground a little bit and kind of see what is going on. The USDA has a lot of information about what's happening. You can find other, sites out there. Um, and I kind of like to, look at quite a few different ones of them that are out there just to kind of see what the trends are and basically see what you're going to be paying for when go to, I don't know what stores you all have around you, Safeway or Publix or Walmart or whatever it may be. Just things are going to get kind of expensive. So that's the thing you just kind of have to kind of watch for and kind of brace yourself for a little bit. Another thing that, I mean, we keep getting changes upon changes and upon changes. And So, and I get that we have a new administration and stuff in. It's almost impossible hardly to keep up with these things. I mean, it's just like Amazon came out and said they're going to put Trump tariffs on their website when you're buying stuff. And I was just like, why? I mean, we've had inflation for the past 3 or 4 years. Why do they choose to do it now? And all of a sudden they're saying, okay, we won't do that anymore. Apparently the White House slammed them. I haven't seen that, but just kind of the word I saw earlier today, and I was just like, okay, fine. But they're also going to be changing the fuels and stuff like that we're going to be seeing this summer. If you don't know that much about fuel, they put ethanol in fuel. I think most people realize that. But there's E5, that's 5%. They have E10, which is 10% ethanol. There's E15. Um, Most newer cars and stuff like that are designed to be able to withstand E15. I say withstand because, I mean, we're running basically on corn syrup, if you want to look at it that way. Um, and so they have to be able to make the engines be able to handle that. And just because they can, if you, I mean, you run E15 in your car and you let it sit for 6 months, it might not start. So just beware of that. Um, so it's best just to run some real gas through it, about once every couple, 3 months, and maybe throw a bunch of Tecron in there and eat it all out, whichever it is. Um, but that's what you really need to do. But they're going to allow E15 gasoline um, to be able to be sold across the United States. It used to be only in, I think it was like 15 or 16 or 17 states they'd allowed that in throughout the summer. I don't know what's regulated, but they opened it up to all markets for this summer to keep the price of gasoline lower so people can have more money. So I don't know how well that's going to do. I don't know how happy that will make people and make farmers happy. They can sell their old crop corn and get that out of their elevators or storage or whatever it may be, and they can start selling that, and that'll make of course, farmers real happy. I don't know about the people running gasoline cars, but if you have an electric car, it doesn't matter. But anyway, they are going to be doing that. So it's going to be kind of weird to see E15 gas at gas stations because well, I think of all I've seen is just E10 is the highest I've seen anywhere I've gone, and I travel between here and Colorado quite a bit. So um, there it is. Of course, I should say Jacksonville also. I kind of go all across the United States sometimes. So, but anyway, just kind of check that out a little bit. Um, as far as one other thing, we have tons of earnings and stuff like that. One stock that I've always just loved. I don't really care for it much, but I do like the stock. I've bought it and sold it. I don't know how many millions of times throughout my life. Is good old Coca-Cola here. Their earnings came out this morning. They beat the street. They were expecting 71 cents. They came in at 72 cents and so on and so forth. Um, and you can kind of see the big wiggle that we've had here based off of those earnings. That's those big old bars. This is a 30-minute chart. And you can kind of see the big wiggle that we had off of there. Right now, they're up into that. So odds are if they start taking out this basically $73 area, they'll probably start continuing to head higher. Now, if you're looking at kind of a longer term, this is just a daily chart. You kind of see we've had a nice little move up. Of course, this is tariff time here, right? And they kind of jump back up again, made new highs, unlike the S&P and the Dow and the Nasdaq. And they kind of pulled back coming into their earnings. But now if they can basically get up back above that 72, they'll probably go up to test that 74 area again and probably kind of continue to move on. But it is kind of a neat stock to just kind of hold on to and play around with a little bit. I think we've got a lot of other earnings coming out this week, and we also tomorrow we're having the GDP and PCE coming out on the same day. I can't remember the last time they did that, but they're doing it this time. Usually they have them a day apart or whatever, but they're going to be having them come out on the exact same day. I think they're putting GDP out at 8:30 Eastern, and then pulling out the PCE at 10 Eastern and letting the market digest that a little bit. If you look at I don't know if you all keep track of this, there's a thing called the Atlanta Fed GDP Now, which basically keeps calculating GDP, right? Um, they've got GDP at negative 2.7%. And if you think about, you've heard recession and blah, 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 blah. And basically, what they define as a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. Ta-da! So when you see that, um, and which is kind of frustrating a little bit because it might finally, I mean, you're talking about 6 months here. They had to have 6 months of time before they can say, hey, we're in a recession. Well, at that point in time, we've probably already been in one and might have been already getting out of it. And that's the problem with them because now you have to have 2 positive quarters to get out of it. Well, there's a whole year right there. So it just takes forever for them to say, hey, we're in a recession, not a recession, whatever. But if you think about it this way, if we do come in after this quarter at negative, that means that's 1 quarter, right? So we're halfway there. And we get the next quarter, which is going to be, well, I mean, we're looking at Q2 right now, right? So it will have to be Q2, Q3. And so basically, once we get into, the GDP number in October, which is a long time from now, we'll find out if we had 2 negative quarters of GDP. Ta-da! So that's basically what we're looking at. And now maybe we've been in negative in the first quarter. I mean, we're looking right now, this is the April number, which is going to be for the first quarter. And the question is it positive or negative for last quarter? Not this month, but the previous 3 months. And I think GDP is going to be kind of an interesting number to look at tomorrow. That's why I'm bringing all this up. So kind of keep your eye on GDP as well as the PCE. That's the personal income and spending. They look at that to see what people's incomes are and how much we're spending about based off our income and all this stuff. And they're always wanting to kind of see what that is because we're the ones who drive the economy. We're the ones out there buying stuff and selling stuff and everything like that. So you got two big inflation numbers I think coming out tomorrow, and who knows if the rally in the S&P continues or does it don't turn around and die off. Um, and if it is getting worse, then maybe they start cutting rates, which makes Trump happy. And of course, it'll make the market happy because they won't lower interest rates anyway. So it'll, put enthusiasm into the market, maybe not the people, um, or might put it in despair and we head right back down again because everything's still nice and robust. See my point? So that's the big thing that we look at when we start looking at these numbers coming out tomorrow. Of course, we'll be back together on Thursday and kind of go from there. Another thing, I mean, if you just kind of look at going back to the E15, the E10, and stuff like that, gasoline. Just kind of watching off that news, how gasoline was reacting to it. Actually dropped about 3 or 4 cents off of that news. It doesn't take as much gasoline to be used because they put more ethanol in it, right? So there won't be as big demand on just regular old gasoline. You still need oil to make the gasoline and everything like that, but oil and gasoline both kind of pulled back off of that a little bit. Crude oil still holding above $60. And if you're just looking at, in general out there, we pretty much have somewhere between 41 and $50. I'll put it that way. Um, Depending on the basin that you're looking at, and whether it be the Permian Basin or the Anadarko Basin or whatever it may be, where basically the oil field guys, basically at break even, basically production. It costs them about $41 to $50 a barrel for production. And if you look at the fracker guys, um, they're a little bit higher than that. Um, so when you start looking at those numbers, they're wanting to keep it above that $55, $60 area so everybody still makes money, right? So I think we're going to have a lot of support in here. If it gives that up, we might go back down to that middle of that range between 40 and $50. My biggest target this year on crude's been $45, just because I figure they'll try to target in there somewhere, but try to hold it up the best they can. Question is, when's the next Fed meeting? It is, if you'll give me 1 second here, I always keep track of that, and I think it's this. It's May. Hold on, give me 1 second here. It is Is there a plus in here? Oh, there it is. The 7th, May the 7th. So we'll get to see what old Powell says on that one. But May 7th, that's a week. That is a week. That's the first 7th. Yeah, it's a week from tomorrow. I'm glad you brought that up. Now it's in my brain. So, but yeah, May 7th is going to be the next Fed meeting. And we'll get to see what Powell says and everything. It's kind of funny. We're going to fire Powell. Now we're not. I think you hear a lot of that. We're going to do this. Maybe we won't. So we'll see how that, like I said, the next several months, I mean, if you've been in this for, the past couple of 3, 4 months, I figure these several months are just going to be all wishy-washy just because it's a brand new administration. They're going to try to do this and they're going to change this. And it's just going to be all over the place. And we've been all over the place. And we're still moving along pretty good. I mean, the average range on average in a day in the S&P is right around 210 points, which is pretty crazy. I mean, it was as high as almost 250 points, going into last week, but things have calmed down a little bit. They haven't moved around as much. I mean, heck, last night we only had a 40-point range in the S&P. And I looked at that and I started laughing just because I was like, wow, it only moved 40 points last night instead of 100 or 120 or whatever it was. So, but yeah, they are calming down a little bit in the markets. I think the markets are starting to get a little more used to what's happening. And now we'll probably see that average range starting to compress a little bit, which basically is decreasing volatility. All right. Um, but yeah, that's basically, I'm hoping it will kind of decrease. These big ranges make a lot of risk in the market. I mean, you sit there and think about it. I mean, if you're trying to do something on a longer term basis, I mean, you got to risk a lot just to be in something, unless you bought it way down there, during COVID or whatever it was. You got a lot of risk in the market. And so you've got to, I mean, what goes up usually comes down. I'm not saying about the market, but just volatility wise, it will compress down a little bit and things will be a little more manageable. I'll put it that way. So, but anyhow, but um, so yeah. Um, yeah, Edwin, I totally agree with that. It totally jacks those things up. Well, not only that, but just I mean, and the old stuff also. I mean, he was just saying that ethanol is really bad for O-rings and gaskets in older models. Also, the older models, if you go really old models, those carburetors can't handle it. Um, just little orifices and stuff like that in those carburetors, like in your lawn equipment. If you have a two-stroke, a little carburetor job in there, it can really jack that up. And I actually had uh, a generator, as a gas power generator, hurricane country, right? That I couldn't get it started, and I pulled the carburetor off of that, and where the fuel intake was literally a 90-degree elbow. When I bought the new carburetor and put it on there, they had this big old long curve going in there, and I was just like, I bet you it was all gummed up in that thing. So, but yeah, it will do that. So just beware. But anyway, and if you're wanting to know a little bit more about energy markets and things, I know after this they'll be doing the energy income trader that I went through yesterday. If you all are interested in that, you can hang around for that. And we'll see what happens with the numbers going through tomorrow and come back on the 1st of May. And Europe will be closed on the 1st of May, so we won't have Europe with us on May because they get off for May Day. But we'll see how the first day of May goes. So, but anyway, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you all on Thursday.